I remember my dad, he gave me a $1 million bill. It was a $1 million bill. And I said, whoa, this is so cool. He starts laughing at me and he goes, it's Confederate money. And I thought, well, what's Confederate money? What can I get for this $1 million of Confederate money? He goes, nothing.
Salam alaikum everyone, and we have a new episode here with Takadao, TakaTalk, and I'm super glad to have Tim on board. And of course, Sharon will make a quick introduction about who's Tim for the one who don't know him in the Middle East. Go ahead, Sharon.
Yeah, so this is the legendary Tim Draper, and I'm not really sure what is the point of me making this introduction, but I will try anyway. He is the founder of Draper Associates and co-founder of Draper, Fisher, and I cannot say this, Jurvetson. He has played a pivotal role in funding and nurturing numerous tech startups, including Hotmail, Skype, Tesla, and Baidu. Draper is a notable advocate for crypto and blockchain tech. He is Mr. Bitcoin with the Mr. Bitcoin tie, and I've seen his socks as well. And so we're really excited to have Tim Draper with us today. First question for you, Tim, is...
I'll spare you the socks.
No, I wanted to take
Actually,
a photo
my
of the
socks,
yesterday.
as you well know, I wore those socks yesterday, and they're in the wash today.
You only got one pair?
The tie is here. The tie is here, and it's a Bitcoin tie with Draper Associates logos on it, and then it's got a big Bitcoin. It says hashtag DGov, decentralized government. So
Excellent.
this is right up the Takadao channel.
But first of all, let's go to the origin story. Now, you are a VC. You've seen tech. I mean, we're talking Hotmail, Skype, so this is some ways back. And you've been in this world where technology has changed the world in the last, I would say, 30-odd years. What drew you to the blockchain?
Oh, well, I was meeting with a guy from Korea, and we had this meeting. It was really fun. And he told me that half of the people in Seoul, Korea, were playing this game. And it was about 2004. And I said, well, what's the game? He said, oh, it's a, kind of a fun game of life and marketplace and all that. I said, marketplace, interesting. He said, yeah. In fact, it's so important now that we're living two lives. We're living our physical life and we're living a virtual life. I said, oh, really? And he said, yeah, it's so much so that I had to hire a guy to be an avatar for me when I go to work. And so he said, yeah, hey, this is a really big thing. And then he went on and he said, yeah, and I bought my son a sword. And I said, for his birthday. And I said, well, that's sort of a non sequitur. And he said, oh, no, I bought him a virtual sword. I bought him a sword of pixels on the screen, and it cost me $40.
Wow.
And I said, oh my God. And all of a sudden, all these things clicked for me. It was, there's going to be a virtual world. It's going to be important to us. It's going to have virtual assets. It's going to have virtual money. So I started to look for digital money. I had this search going. And
which year was this?
2005.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So there were games. There's Farmville. There's some other games. And they had money in them. They had gold, or they had platinum, or they had diamonds, or whatever. And I started to think, well, okay, if they start trading their gold for somebody else's platinum, then we're going to have real virtual money that really matters. And it didn't happen. And I thought, well, maybe it's like United Airlines doesn't want to give United Miles to American, that kind of thing. And then Satoshi Nakamoto created Bitcoin. And I looked into it and I said, oh my gosh, he has created a virtual coin that is secure. It's a trusted third party. It's open and transparent to the world. And it's going to really change things. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is huge. And so I bought a bunch, and Bitcoin at the time was $6 per Bitcoin.
Oh.
And I was going to get them for $4 from this guy at CoinLab, and because he was going to go mine with my money.
Yeah.
And he went, and he apparently it didn't work exactly the way we thought. The guys who the computer guys basically front ran us. There was Butterfly Lane front ran us, and then he put all of our Bitcoin in mt.gox, and then that all disappeared.
Oh.
And I would have had 40,000 Bitcoin from that.
Oh.
And so then I thought, oh, well, that's the end. Too bad. It was really interesting experiment and whatever. It wasn't, it was small amount of money relative to my fund size at the time. And I lose money occasionally. I don't, some of my investments don't go well. But I know that Takadao is going to be a big winner. So
Inshallah. Did I teach you this word yesterday? Inshallah.
Inshallah. Yeah, but I'm even more certain than inshallah about this. So
you know what it means? It means God willing.
I know it means God willing. Yeah. So so I'm looking and I'm saying, oh, too bad that's gone. But Bitcoin on the news of Mt. Gox disappearing all that money, and Mt. Gox was the biggest trading system on the planet for Bitcoin. It only dropped 15% in price. And I thought it was going to go to zero. I thought that was the end. But no, there was a real marketplace there. And there were real people who really needed it for some reason. So I thought, that's interesting. And before I bought more, I dug down and I went deep. And I said, well, what are they using it for? And I found out a lot of things. A lot of remittances, people sending money overseas. A lot of people paying other people for services that were overseas or one-ofs or whatever. And then they had then a bunch of people who were really, really poor. And they were unbanked and unbankable because a bank won't open an account for somebody for, $10 because there are too many regulations. It's too much work. They don't want to take that money. And so suddenly these people were in the world economy, even though they weren't bankable. And that really got me. And I thought, whoa, that's where it is. That's the value right there. Is going to come up from below. And so I started to buy Bitcoin. I bought some here and some there. And there wasn't that much for sale, a little bit here and a little bit there. And then there was the big auction where, they got the guy for
Silk Road,
for the Silk Road. Yeah. And there was all this Silk Road Bitcoin available. And the government U.S. Marshal's Office put up an auction. So I was talking to a bunch of people about it, and there's this auction, and they were all saying, well, what kind of a discount are you going to get, and what are you going to go for? And they're all gaming it, but they're all thinking that it's such a high amount of Bitcoin that people are going to pay a discount. And I thought, whether it's 5% under or 5% over market won't matter because this is really important. And if it's as important as I think it is, whether it's 632 or 618 won't matter. And so I bid 632, which is about, whatever that is, above market. And I bid on all the lots because I didn't know quite how it was going to work. And there were 9 lots. And I thought, well, I'll get 1 or 2, I think, because I'm bidding over market. I got all 9. And whoa, that's a lot of money.
You're looking pretty good right now.
That was a lot of money. And I thought, okay, well, and I thought, go for it. This is good. I'm going to go for it. And then Bitcoin went from 632 down to 180. And they did another auction at 180. And I bought some of that, but I didn't buy the whole thing. And then then Bitcoin kept going. And during my research, I learned about the blockchain. I learned about how it would keep perfect records and how all the miners and all those people are going to be watching over it because it keeps perfect records. And I thought, wow, that is really powerful. And that's not just for money. That's for every asset. That's for whatever. You can keep quality assets out there. And then I started to think, wow, you keep perfect records on money. You don't need the accountant, the auditor, the bookkeeper, transfer agent. You don't need a tax lawyer. All those things can be done automatically on the blockchain. And very few governments have recognized this. They should figure out as quickly as they can how to make a Bitcoin economy, because then they'll all be taxed, all the taxes will be paid automatically. And they don't have to, in the case of the US, they don't have to hire 85,000 new agents to go into everybody's shorts to figure out whether they've paid the right amount of taxes. Instead, it'll all be done automatically. And I'm thinking that should be here, but it's only here in like El Salvador, Panama, the Congo, or the Central African Republic. Very few countries have done that. Maybe Malta, maybe Switzerland, I'm not sure. In any case, I got excited about it. And then I really got excited when I saw smart contracts, because I realized that you can do amazing things with smart contracts. I've always thought, every time I work with a new contract, with a lawyer on a new contract, I always think, well, it's really just all about the money, but it has many levels to it. So that could all be done in a software program. And so why not have that all in a software program? And I had backed a couple of people who I thought were going to kind of create software for legal. It never quite came out the way I had hoped. Now it's happening. I mean, smart contracts for now are just like on bets or simple, very simple trades or whatever. But they're coming for everything else. So I'm very excited about how smart contracts are going to change the nature of the law. And that's going to make all of our lives a lot less frictionful. We're going to have very little friction in the currency, in the contracts, and in the stability of the asset, stability of ownership of the asset. That is all going to be incredibly new, stable, and frictionless. And that, when you have less friction in an economy, everybody gets rich. So way back when they changed from shells to gold, there was less friction, everybody got richer. When they changed from gold to the promise of gold, everybody got richer. When they changed from the promise of gold to the promise of a government, everybody got richer. And now you don't even need that fiat involved. You have this amazing currency that's trusted and decentralized. Now, people have been saying, "Oh, that stuff. Oh, I can't. It's risky. It's scary," because they saw FTX. Well, FTX was centralized. It was like me starting a Draper coin or something. It was centralized. That makes no sense, because you've got this decentralized money. Why not use the decentralized money of Bitcoin instead of using some centralized currency that's Samuel Fried's money, that he made up? And I think that this decentralization is really good for society, really good for people. Anyway, you got another question?
Wow, I mean that was fantastic, and I really like your approach, because a lot of people, when they come to crypto and Bitcoin, they're always talking about the tech, the tech, the tech. But you actually went there and you saw the use cases first, and you're like, oh, this technology solves it all, and this is fantastic. And you actually touched on this a little bit. You were saying, there was all this FUD, this fear, uncertainty, and there's all these issues came up with FTX, with mt.gox obviously, and there was all these, the market kept moving. How do you, as an investor, and how do you advise people to see or to look at this and say, well, how can I trust an industry which is so volatile? How can this be the future?
So at first I was thinking Bitcoin's very volatile, but now I'm thinking, wait, one Bitcoin is worth one Bitcoin. There are 21 million of them. We know that one Bitcoin's worth one Bitcoin. And all these other currencies are slowly disappearing from use. And they're volatile against that one Bitcoin. And I didn't really think that way until I saw the US government, with what seemed like a stable currency, print 10 trillion of them. And suddenly
Wow.
the dollars that I had were worth about 15% less. And that's what happens in an inflationary economy. And nobody trusts the currency. And the currency becomes the hot potato. And people want real assets, or they want something that's stable and secure. And that happens with any currency that is centralized. If a centralized currency, a central bank, a centralized currency, they all are subject to the whims of politics and people and whatever. But if you have a decentralized currency like Bitcoin, no one node can knock it out. It can't be hacked because we've got all these people watching over it and all these machines keeping an eye on making sure that the block stays pure. I think we've found something of incredible value to humanity, and they just it's step by step to get all the people to come on board. But retailers, I'm surprised retailers haven't really jumped on this, because retailers usually operate on margins like 2. And this can double, if they accept Bitcoin, they can double their bottom line. And I thought that, and when retailers take Bitcoin, then you can buy your food, your clothing, your shelter, all in Bitcoin. As soon as you can do that and pay taxes, there's no reason for a fiat currency. There will be a run on fiat currencies. People will run to the bank, get it out of there, put it into Bitcoin. And I think that's coming.
Do you think that Bitcoin and fiat currency can coexist for some time to better condition of a nation, and not necessarily just eliminate one or the others? How because the fear of some
depends
nations,
on what you mean by. I think they're coexisting now.
Yeah.
But there will be a moment where people say, I can buy my food, my clothing, my shelter all in Bitcoin. I can pay my taxes in Bitcoin. Why am I holding these dollars? And so I think that they're going to coexist for a long time. But see, I project 15 years out. That's my mind. It's always 15 years out. So 15 years from now, I'm looking and I'm saying, I'm pretty sure that people are going to want to hold their Bitcoin and they're not going to want to hold their fiat. I remember my dad, he gave me a $1 million bill. It was a $1 million bill. And I said, whoa, this is so cool. He starts laughing at me and he goes, it's Confederate money. And I thought, well, what's Confederate money? What can I get for this $1 million of Confederate money? He goes, nothing. And I said, why? And he said, because, when they lost the war, the Confederates stopped, being able to use their Confederate dollars. They had to use the Union dollars. And when that happened, everybody needed to get rid of their Confederate dollars. So they printed more, and they tried to keep them in circulation, and they had huge inflation. So they're $1 million Confederate dollars. And everybody was just trying to get rid of them so that they could get Union dollars, because that was the only thing anyone would take. I think there will be a time when Bitcoin is the only thing anyone will take. Now, there may be other cryptocurrencies, but there won't be a reason, and probably the ones that are the more decentralized, that will survive, because I think people have learned their lesson on FTX. I think that you you don't want a centralized currency that's subject to the whims of one person.
Yeah, this is an excellent segue because I was going to ask you. So there are a lot of people who are Bitcoin maximalists, right? And they're saying Bitcoin only, all the other crypto is nonsense. But you clearly do believe that there is some worth, some value in the technology outside of Bitcoin. So what do you see for the future of cryptocurrencies? And you've already mentioned a little bit that you're really more focused on the decentralized stuff. But how do you see this evolving?
I was surprised after FTX that people didn't just bail out of all the other centralized currencies. Anything tied to Ethereum, the Solana, the whatever was centralized. I thought, what are they thinking? This can happen in any of these. It wasn't just an isolated incident. This can happen to any of these. But they didn't. You know, they didn't. Nobody's really blinked. And it might take another one before people realize that you really just want the decentralized ones. So, you know, so I have some favorites. I like Tezos. I don't own any, but I like Cardano. I think that's when it's decentralized.
Yep.
I like Jure and Aragon because they're actually creating sort of decentralized governing,
Right.
whether it's a decentralized voting system or jury or whatever. I think that that's really powerful. And then the special purpose ones, I think those are important too. So things that have an isolated purpose, I think those are good tokens. But hey, Bitcoin, I like Bitcoin a lot.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
So okay, you're recently become an investor in Takadao. And what we do, as you know, and I will say it for the audience, is a community-owned life insurance company at this stage that allows people to pool their money together to mutually insure one another. Now, what about what we're doing appealed to you?
So two things. One was that I am always looking for industries that are oligopolies where they're providing bad service at a high cost. And we as consumers have no alternative. And you can imagine the industries I'm talking about: banking, big pharma, government, and one of those is insurance. You're getting bad service and you're paying a high cost for insurance. And everybody knows it, but they don't have any alternative. In fact, the insurance system has been so locked in with regulation that there's no way for us to operate outside of the locked insurance system.
100%.
And that happened in big pharma too. If you want to create a new drug, you solve the problem and cure cancer tomorrow, it'd take $2 billion in 15 years to get the thing approved. There is a lock. When a company gets super big, they hire lobbyists, they help the government create rules, and those rules and regulations get more and more and more complicated so that they're only good for the oligopoly. And it's not they're not friends to the innovator. Innovators get really crushed by that. So, and small businesses get really crushed by these big businesses setting rules with government, because then they'll set the rules so nobody else can participate. So that's happening in insurance. So that's number one. You've got an industry where they're providing bad service at a high cost, and they're an oligopoly that's locked into a set of restrictions and regulations that have been set by government. You guys came to me with a whole new system of insuring, and it doesn't require a lot of regulation, doesn't require anything, and we can all insure each other. And at first, there's a little bit of a catch-22. You gotta have enough people to make it worthwhile and to cover the extraordinary expenses. But at first, hey, you go through the Takadao system, I forget what you call it, Taka something.
Like a
And
turn.
Taka turn, and your turn comes up and you go buy a motorcycle, or your turn comes up and you can open a storefront, or you whatever. I think that could be the beginning, and the goal here will be to spread it to millions and millions of people, and then you have the biggest insurance company in the world. And I think that could happen. And you're using technology that's new and innovative, and it's all built on smart contracts using the blockchain. Very important. And it was something, by the way, I've been kind of looking for. I've seen a lot of companies that are sort of doing insure tech, but all they're doing is making it easier for an insurance broker to do their job, or none of them are like going after insurance, the whole game.
You're absolutely right. So InsurTech today is all about tools that are being sold to insurance companies that make their lives easier, that make, increase their profit margins. And the reason why nobody's able to go after the insurance company is because of regulation. And that's the thing that is.
Hey, and
really
I just figured out another reason for you to wear the mask. And here it is.
Tell me.
It's the same reason Satoshi Nakamoto stayed incognito, because he's going after a big industry that doesn't like
Hell
what he's
yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
But they're going to go after me, Tim. Oh, sorry.
No, she'll be the spokesperson. And by the way, just so you know, Shireen, there are a lot of lookalikes.
Yeah.
I know. I can dodge.
I walk through the streets of Saudi Arabia or Kuwait or Doha.
You kept seeing me everywhere.
I saw you everywhere.
Amazing. And Tim, so this is great actually. So we had a visit as well, and in nations actually that are really disturbed by the last event that we hear about is le franc CFA, which is like common money that is being printed by the French government and is given to some francophone nation in Africa. They call it the Sahel, where the entire economy is tied up to this franc CFA. Okay, and all the time when those nations try to find an alternative to go away to this money, fiat currency printed by the French government, can only be used again to the central bank of France. Those guys are kind of tied up because the economy is tied up to a very increasing price on the euro. So they cannot produce anything in Africa to sell to other nations. And then when they want to free themselves from that things, they kind of bully by the system, But we see all of those nations try to break through. And now, they are trying to find an alternative to even digitalize or tokenize the energy. So you saw that, for example, Niger or Burkina Faso, who hold a lot of gold asset or uranium, they were like, hey, why do we still have to print our currency with the French? Let's get them out, have our own currency. Why not a digital currency and tokenize our energy? And you saw that the uranium went from 80 cents, the French were paid 80 cents per kilo to 200 US dollars per kilo. How do you see Bitcoin being a big play that how can we kind of push and influence those young rulers who are now in power to adopt to that new way of trading? How can we be involved in that?
Well, I think when Bukele from El Salvador made Bitcoin his national currency, he took a big risk, and Bitcoin fell. The price fell against the dollar, went against him. But he took a big risk. But now, when I talk to these people in El Salvador, I get jealous because I look and I go, wow, you're operating smart contracts for, groceries. You're doing It's amazing. They're so far ahead of the rest of the world. And I started to think, wow, this is what happens to the world. One country gets too control freaky, and then they think they're the kings of the world, and then the U.S. rebels against Britain, or Britain rebels against France, or they take down the Roman Empire or whatever. An empire gets really big, and then somebody wants to be the control freak who says everybody should do what I tell them to do. And then that's the beginning of the end of that country. And then there's the rise of another country. And, you've seen the rises of Singapore when they set their people free and laid down very clear laws. You saw the rise of China when they set their people free. Now you're seeing them flatten out because they've got a control freak again. You saw the difference between the freedom of South Korea and North Korea, where North Korea was all control-based government, and they call it socialism or communism, and South Korea, which they call capitalism and democracy. You see that there was a line drawn between those two. 70 years later, the South Koreans earn income of 460 times what the North Koreans earn. The North Koreans are starving. Their dictator is telling them all exactly what they can and can't do, what they can and can't say. And the South Koreans were free country, open borders, open trading, democracy, everything sort of free, and very trusting of their people. And that trust in people makes a big difference. The average South Korean now is 4 inches taller than the average North Korean. And the average South Korean the average South Korean woman is 4 inches taller than the average North Korean man. And it's actually, I love going to Saudi now because they're opening the place up. They're trusting people and they're setting them free. And I think it's because they're now down to the great grandchildren of the kings. And they're saying, we used to, as Saudi kings, we used to not work. Well, now they're saying Saudis work, and work's a big part of the culture. And it's opened the place up, and it's fantastic. And I love that about it. So I'm excited about what's happening around the world, but I'm a little concerned for my own country, the U.S., but I'm fighting for Nikki Haley, and I think she's the one who really understands decentralization. She understands push it down to the state level, let them push it down to the county level, let the counties push it to the family. I think she really understands that, and I think she's, that kind of trust and freedom will help an economy grow at 8% instead of 2%.
Fantastic. All right. Last question from me. So yesterday we saw, well, I saw you guys are having, or the Draper University is having an accelerator, I think, for Web3 startups. And the other thing we talked about was Draper Nation. So tell us some of the initiatives that you guys are doing on that front.
So Draper Nation is kind of an experiment. I can tell you about Draper University. We have a variety of different conferences that go through their Web3, brain-computer interfaces, space, whatever. Lots of things happen there. We have a hero training there maybe 3 times a year. A lot of entrepreneurs come out of there, and it's been very good for us. Draper Nation has been an experiment. We worked with JUR, the system of, in effect, decentralized government tokenization. And I've always been talking about how there are these land-based governments that matter. And now a lot of governance can be done virtually. And so if you can create a virtual government, then then you can show all the other governments how better to serve their citizens. And I'm looking at Draper Nation as, I mean, maybe sure, it may just take off, but it's as an example of how governance can be done up in the cloud. You can, right now, I mean, you can have AI do a better job than the average doctor of diagnosing whatever it is you have. You can do medical tourism and get better service for lower cost if you're outside of some of these more regulated countries. You can run somebody's pension or their social security much more efficiently, much more effectively than current governments do. You can set up a tax system that's all Bitcoin related, and so it keeps perfect records, and nobody gets overtaxed, nobody gets undertaxed. You can set up other government services where you give up your data and you get better health insurance or better health service. You can so there are all these interesting you can have insurance like what you guys are doing, and it can be a whole new form of insurance that isn't tied to this sort of horrible like lobbyist bureaucracy. So I'm looking and I'm saying, hey, this is a great showcase for new ways of governing. And in the meantime, we're hoping people will just join Draper Nation, get your passport, and hang in there and see if down the road we provide some services that end up providing you better governance than you ever had in a land-based government. Great thing about a virtual government is you don't have to defend the borders. You don't have to worry about whether you're putting an office building next to a barn. You don't have to worry about, there are a lot of things you don't have to worry about. And those are things land-based governments still have to worry about. But you don't have to worry about policing the state, although you do have hackers, and we will be ruthless on hackers. We will be unbridled ruthlessness on hackers. They will be outlaws and no longer included in the nation. We will pursue them to the end of the earth, because our whole nation is going to be built on trust and freedom. And so if anybody tries to break that trust, boom, we're coming down hard.
Very cool. All right. So how would one go about joining Draper Nation?
Oh, drapernation.com. You can just go get your passport. Or
Excellent.
There's a wait list for passports, but yeah, you can get your passport.
Very cool.
And then once you've got it, then, it's one of those things that slowly but surely it'll be more and more recognized. Those passports, they'll probably let them into Palau and let them into Macau, and they'll probably let them into Malta and El Salvador, and then pretty soon
That is true, yeah.
It's going to be bigger and bigger and bigger. And then that's just the passport. Then there are the services. And I think what we're going to do is we'll start by just recommending services that are new and new ways of being governed. And then we'll maybe incorporate them into our system. And since so much of governing is insurance, I think Takadao and Draper Nation are going to be, tied at the hip.
Fantastic.
So I think it was great hearing from the father of Bitcoin. I will call you like that. And
I'm not the father.
Yeah, but you're the guy, mashallah, who have been like really involved.
I'm willing to promote.
Yeah, and then I think it was great also meeting you, your team, and physically, and I'm looking forward to more, seeing you in Saudi Arabia definitely, and expressing and showing your enthusiasm around that industry. I'm super glad to have you as a supporter and investors also in Takadao, and looking forward to grow the company and the team. Sharon?
Absolutely. So thank you so much for this, Tim. Do you have any
Good.
last
And
words before we?
congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Congratulations on making the finals of Meet the Drapers. That's a big
I'm
accomplishment.
excited. Oh no,
There are,
it's huge.
I mean, I think we have like 6 finalists, and we have probably seen 6,000 businesses to get there.
Wow. Wow, wow,
That's
wow.
So
amazing.
counting on big things from you too.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
team.
so much, Tim.